Flying over San Diego. My new drone. Oh, just kidding. What's up? Welcome to the Rental Property Owner Show. It's Steve Welty. Beautiful day. It is Tuesday, and we've got a little view of the office today. We've got people dropping off apps and rental references, and Grace working hard in there, getting owner statements ready. What's up, Grace? All right, so today we're going to talk about lease renewals and why it's important to renew leases. And today we're going to talk with Natalia, who's one of our lead property managers. And why don't you scoot over for me, Natalia? I'm going to pull my chair up here. We're going to have a quick chat. So our goal is to improve the lives of owners and tenants. And one of the things we're going to do to help them improve their bottom line of their rental business is be more successful with their lease renewals. So let's go through before we look at that, let me say a couple things. If you know someone that has a rental property and can benefit from this, hey, April, what's up? Please tag them in the comments or share this, and please give us your comments. We really love your comments, and we'd like to hear your feedback. And if you have any other tips, like April, who's also a pro, we'd love to hear from you. So, Natalia, when you're renewing a lease, there's about, I identified 4 things that are important before you renew. The first is to set an alert for yourself about 90 days out prior to the lease expiring. Why is that important, and why would you want to do that?
So it's important to have such a far notice out, about 90 days, because I'm hiding.
Sorry. This thing's a little weird. We're using a new gimbal today.
There we go.
There you go.
It's important to have about a 90-day notice out, just because in some places, like here in San Diego, there's a just cause eviction law, and that requires that if a tenant had lived there for over 2 years, you need to have sufficient notice if you weren't going to renew. Mm-hmm. And so that's really important, and a lot of people aren't aware of that law because it is fairly new.
Right.
And so
there you go. You gotta put it toward you. There you go. I'm figuring this out. All right.
So it is important. So about 90 days out, we send out our renewal offers or requests to the owners, right. And they usually get back to us with a yes or no. So you have to give a 60-day notice for the just cause eviction law if you don't want to renew. So let's just say you want to sell, or if maybe the property's not being treated nicely. There's about 10 clauses in there. But what we do is we set that out, so then if you do have to give that 60-day notice, it gives room for like a negotiation. Right. If they want to come back and maybe like resolve the issue, if they wanted to even buy the house, so forth. So it gets plenty of room.
Right.
So we want to, I guess, offer that room.
Right, so give them enough time, right? 90 days. So then that gives you, like you said, like about 30 days to negotiate.
Yes.
Because if they've lived there over a year, you got to give them a 60-day notice. And then if they're in San Diego, they have the just cause eviction law, where you have to give them 60 days in a reason.
Definitely.
So, and tenants just like to, it's a customer service thing. Especially if you're raising the rent, right, or doing different terms, you want to give them ample time to kind of make that decision and not feel like they're being rushed.
Definitely.
So the second thing is review the market. Seems kind of like a no-brainer, but a lot of times I think owners just, $100 sounds good, right?
Yeah.
They don't really have any rhyme or reason. So what would people do in that regard? What should they look for? What should they do?
So I always like to put myself in the tenant's shoes. I've been a renter for a while, and so putting yourself in the tenant's shoes is the most important, because essentially they're the ones that are going to be living there. They're going to be paying you the rent. Mm-hmm. So if you're putting yourself in the tenant's shoes, you're going to be aware of what's acceptable to them, what they're going to be happy with, what they could possibly re-rent the place at. Mm-hmm. So $100 it does sound nice to like an owner, but if the market's not growing that fast, then it's essentially putting yourself above the market, and they can go and find a place for much cheaper. So
right. So what's like? So they could probably what we do is we'll look at Zillow. We'll kind of act like we're the tenant, because what do they do when they get, especially if they get a fee increase or a rent increase letter?
Yeah, they're going to go and see what else is out there and see if they can get better. So in their head, yes, when moving, you think about moving costs are pretty expensive and so forth, but to a tenant, it doesn't matter. If they're going to find a place that they can pay monthly cheaper, or even the price that they were paying before, they're going to make that move.
Yeah, or sometimes they're just like, hey, I just want a place with fresh paint.
Yeah, new
right?
place, new area. People, move around for jobs, go to different schools. They kind of move around just as much as anybody else in any industry. So
yeah. So that kind of dovetails into my third point, which was make that rent offer, if you're raising the rent, make it a little bit below what the market might be. Now, why would we want to do that?
So when you're trying to limit vacancy time, it's important to, again, obviously put yourself in other people's shoes. And turnover costs and vacancy costs, I can't stress it enough, can become really expensive.
Right.
Especially if the tenants have lived there for over 3 or 4 years. Paint is, you have to pay for all the paint. You have
a couple $1,000s on average,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. And so a lot of people don't factor into those costs, and so they think like, oh, well, I want $200 more on the rent. Well, that's
right.
$200 over a course of a year. Your turnover cost can be way above it. So,
right.
So I always recommend keeping it just slightly below the market to keep it good. You wanna reward a good tenant too. So you want to keep a good tenant.
Right. You
want to keep it occupied, especially with a good tenant.
Right.
And limit vacancy time.
Right. And if they're paying full market, they might just say, okay, well, I'm just going to move into the place across the street that has fresh paint because if I'm going to pay full market.
Exactly.
And all of this is within mind, right? That it's to get the owner the most money possible. So. Yeah. When we say a little below market, it's slightly below market in order to entice them to stay, because if it's at market, they'll just move. If it's slightly below, it's going to limit vacancy costs, which hopefully will net you the most money over the course of the lease term, right?
Yes, because if you add up the difference of something slightly below market to above market, could be little as $30. So you times that by 12 months, and that's a lot cheaper than turnover costs. That's for sure.
Thanks for the thumbs up, April. We love you. Thanks for the comments. We appreciate that. And if you're watching in replay, please let us know what you think, and feel free to comment or share. And then what's the last thing? Like, what's the golden rule? Like, you never renew the lease before you do.
Get approval?
Almost. Well, that too, but I like that because that's what the owner.
We want to do preventative maintenance walkthrough.
Yes.
So you want to make sure that the home's being taken care of. That's important. Obviously, you want to make sure that, if they're not paying attention to, is there a hidden leak somewhere? Is the smoke detectors on? You want to check all that, but you also want to check the overall quality of the home and just make sure it's being well maintained, taken care of, and they're not punching holes everywhere.
Yeah, and a lot of times owners just renew the lease and they don't check the property out.
Yeah.
Or, sometimes they'll just let it go month to month. Now, that's an interesting question. So some people might be watching, they might say, well, why would I renew the lease? I just let my leases go month to month. What do you think?
Yeah, so we do have some areas where people do want to have like the month-to-month leases and everything, but if you have a low risk tenant, you want to keep them there longer. So it's best to offer them a term, like a 1-year term, or if you decide on something more. But when you have a high risk tenant, sometimes you want that to revert month to month, so you have the flexibility to terminate their lease if if there becomes more of a risk.
Totally. And I know a lot of higher risk areas, like higher risk buildings, they will just start out month to month because the tenant might be a little more risky, have a lower FICO score, and so you want to have the flexibility to terminate the lease early or right away if they're not paying or something. So there is instances where you'd want to go month to month, like Natalia said, but usually if it's a good low risk tenant, thanks April, appreciate you. You want to do a lease because that's going to give you control to when it's going to expire. So Natalia, wouldn't you say it probably on average is like 10% less a property will rent for in like the winter versus the summer?
Yeah, definitely. The summer, so in the wintertime, it definitely is a lower activity months. So it becomes a little bit more of a, I wouldn't say like a challenge to rent them, but you get less people looking for rentals during that timeline.
You have to be more competitive, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
there's less people.
So you tend to get a little bit less on rent, a little bit less people looking, a little bit more or less prospective tenants, and so forth.
Right.
So.
Perfect. Now, a couple other nuggets that we'll do sometimes that I want to throw out there is offer an upgrade. Sometimes tenants are on the fence, and we've done that, right, Natalia? They're like, well, can we paint the room, or can we, as long as it's going towards the property, you know, and the owner wins and the tenant wins and it's within the budget, that can be a win, right?
Yeah, I always have this example that we have a tenant that had lived at a home for about 7 years and had really old carpet. They moved in with the carpet already being some years old, and then the owners just wanted to reward them and give them brand new carpet, and that was like a really exciting for them. Yeah. And so they stayed in the place another couple years.
Perfect.
And now still have brand new carpet.
Yeah, win-win, right? If you wouldn't have talked with them, you wouldn't have known that. And you know, maybe you're probably gonna have to replace that carpet anyway, so you kept the tenant. Yeah. Same thing with like sometimes people want like a new dishwasher, it's like your dishwasher's 10 years old anyway. If you keep the tenant, you're probably gonna have to replace it. Let's just do it now and keep the tenant and keep the money coming in, right?
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Well, I think we've covered that good today. Thank you, Natalia. Appreciate that. Some good stuff to think about. And you know, I know we've helped. Natalia gave you one case study with the tenant with the old carpet, but I know we've helped a client, Chip, before, who wasn't renewing leases at all and then started renewing leases. And we kind of had him go through these steps. And what do you got? You guys watching the new dogs on the TV there? I see that. And now they're, you know, able to do it right and make sure the property's inspected and make sure they renew at the right rate and they get the money that, you know, they should be getting for their rental business. So again, we thank you for watching. If you know someone that could benefit from this episode, please tag them or share this episode. We love your comments, and we appreciate you all watching live and in replay. And make sure to tune in next week. We do this Tuesday at 2 o'clock. We got more people coming in, so we're gonna sign out. All right, see ya.
For grace.